Hey guys, happy Friday. This is Amanda from the Roanoke Regional Small Business Development Center, and I have a really special guest today. But first, let me tell you about Heather. Oh, no, that way. Heather's over there, depending on how you're looking at us, who helps us coordinate all these and decides on the topics and listens to what you guys have to say so we get the right people on here. So, good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Happy
And our
Friday.
guest today, I know, right? It's Halloween, and I have to tell you guys, I woke up this morning with regret that I didn't think to make this a Halloween edition and come in full face paint makeup
Well, I
because
thought I
I
was
would
already
do that.
scary enough. So,
You guys just don't know how much I love Halloween and dressing up. And it's on a Saturday this year. What is with that? I need it to be a weekday. But I woke up this morning like I could have done that today. Like we could have totally dressed up.
We could have.
but as a kid,
So
you need it to be on the weekend. That's the best.
I know it is for kids, right? And parents of kids. See, I have a teenager, so I don't care when it is, but I like the weekdays because I can like paint up and go out like to work and everybody's freaked
Yeah.
out. Yeah. So I totally should have done that today. But anyway, let's talk about our guests because that's the most important thing on this Friday.
Right.
Tomorrow's Halloween, not today. And we've got Terry Durkin with us. And Terry is the Vice President of Public Policy for the Roanoke Regional Chamber of Commerce. And we are lucky enough to be hosted by the Roanoke Regional Chamber of Commerce, which means we live in their building and they help take care of us. And we're able to utilize their resources and they can utilize our resources. It's a really cool deal. But we love being part of what Terry's doing. We're not really part of it. I don't take any credit for it, but I love to listen to what he's doing and understand particularly how it impacts small businesses. In our area, public policy is something that as a small business owner, you guys need to be thinking about. I know it's the last thing on your mind and you don't have a lot of time, but it's something you want to be paying attention to, whether it's the news or you're with the chamber and you're getting your news from them because they do a great job of just kind of telling you what's going on. And so it's just a great outlet. And we'll talk about that more at the end of how you guys can get that newsletter and information and be part of the chamber. But welcome, Terry. Thank you for taking time out. I know that it's a busy week.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good. So this has been we've had this on the books for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been anxiously awaiting the opportunity. And so let's just start out, Terry, like what is public policy, right? Like what is it?
So, the best way that I can describe it really, it's the process by which rules and regulations that govern really everyday life are made. So you have policies. So I use policies generally because you can have on the local level ordinances, on the state and federal level laws or regulations. So I use policies generally, but at all different levels, my focus obviously at the chamber are policies that affect business owners.
I love that. And just want to recap a little bit for you guys. So there are local policies and ordinances that impact business that should be important to us and we should be advocating for in those areas. And then there's also the state level, right, which governs our laws, which sometimes even has a bigger impact, especially if you're an existing business. And so we'll kind of talk through some of that today. But tell us, I'm always fascinated, Terry, with the year in a life of Terry. Like, it's not a day in a life. It's like you have this whole yearly cycle that you go through where oftentimes you're in Richmond for a long time, long stretches of time. So tell us, like, briefly, what does a year look like for you? And like, kind of what are those cycles so that we can understand when to be more engaged, right? When to really be paying attention.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's been a really interesting year for me too, because I just came up on my first year with the chamber in this role, just honestly at the beginning of this month. So just recapped a full year, and of course half that year was COVID, so it might be a little bit different than it usually was. But many of my job duties are keeping an eye on policies, again, at the local, state, and federal level. And at the local level, that could mean anything on zoning, hearings on developments, issues like local taxation. On the state level, healthcare, other taxes and regulations, and then transportation like I-81, Roanoke-Blacksburg Regional Airport. And at the federal level, it's more so right now COVID-19 relief legislation. The chamber advocates at all different levels of government, but federally, it's been a little more so in recent months just due to COVID-19. But in the January through February or March timeframe, I am down in Richmond for the state legislative session, which is quite a different feel from when I'm back here the rest of the year.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it's wild. When I'm in Richmond, you're meeting directly with legislators or their staff to kind of inform them where the chamber stands on particular bills or issues that affect the business community. And then you're also attending hearings and speaking in front of, a panel of legislators on bills. So during those winter months, you mentioned cycles. It's definitely, you have a one-track mind on what's going on in Richmond. You can have committee meetings starting as soon as 7 a.m. and going late into the evening, 4 or 5 days in a row. And I'd recommend anybody who hasn't been to Richmond during session to do so because it's really interesting. I don't want to keep going on and on here, but outside of session, again, it's a little different, a little more keeping track on what's going on at the local and federal level. We've found some ways to kind of innovate this year. It's like everybody else has, instead of doing things in person, we've kind of leveraged Zoom and other technologies to get some of our elected officials to give briefings to our membership. So, without these electronic services, we wouldn't have been able to get Governor Northam or Senator Warner or Kane or our local congressional delegation in to speak to us. So, like you said, it goes in cycles.
And you just recently had the mayor's debate, right, for the Roanoke City area, right? Yeah, that's really cool. And that's something I don't think, if you're not a member of the chamber yet, you might not realize that that's a big part, that the chamber has events during the year to bring together policymakers and the public to get that information out there and allow, just become a platform for that, which I think is just so cool. Without you guys, we wouldn't have that opportunity.
And the great thing about the chamber too is, we're nonpartisan, right, and we don't take issues on candidates or people, just issues. Right. So we work with whoever's in office, and it really gives you, freedom to work across the partisan spectrum, which, this day and age is more important more than ever. Yeah.
That's right. I love that. That's a lot. I think it's fascinating that you're in Richmond. You're right. Like, if you can go to Richmond during legislation, it's great. I've only been able to do that one time. The SBDC has a little bit of different role, although we do advocate for small businesses, and we actually do work with our local policymakers, but not on policy. We don't do that. We leave that to the chambers. We just want to tell the story. That's our job. Our job is to tell the story of small business owners. And it's just so much fun to go to Richmond, and where they're in session, they're in that mindset and they're ready to listen. And that's what they're looking for. So it is a lot of fun. We should, Heather, as I think about this, maybe next year we'll take small businesses with us. That'd be fun. We'll just do a field trip.
That would be super fun.
Yeah.
You really should. And then let me know. And then, if you want me to help make introductions, I know everybody in our area, so you don't need it, but it'd be fun to kind of walk around and talk to folks.
Absolutely. No, I'd love that. Okay. So everybody hold us accountable to that. You're watching.
That's right.
We're going to do that next year. We'll put it on
on the notebook.
It'll be fun. Yeah. If it's in Heather's notebook, it's going to happen.
The big thing is, who knows too, if session this year is going to be remote. This might be the first time, probably maybe ever, that a regular session is done remotely. So that's another thing we're keeping an eye on too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I like doing lots of things remotely, but I don't like that. I want to be there in person, face to face with them, and be able to we give them materials, right? Like we put businesses in front of them. So. But yeah, it'll be fascinating to watch what happens. And I know you've had to deal with a lot of that this year. We were joking yesterday, we were with someone that was joking. If anything has happened before March, it was almost like it was last year. Yeah. Like, last year we did this. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, that was like March 5th.
It really does feel that way. And I've started getting some white hairs in my beard, and I just say it's 2020, you know?
That's right. That's right. Well, it's just, you know, especially the relief conversations have been challenging and tugs on us all because we know how important it is for small businesses and all businesses. But, you know, our love is with the small businesses and how much they've been impacted and need the relief right away. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was a year in a life. That's really cool. So we've talked a little bit, we've hinted a little bit of why business owners should care about public policy and even entrepreneurs. So like if you're wanting to start a business, it's, you know, even just as critical. And it's certainly something we want to start watching. But in your mind, like why should businesses care? You briefed on it a little bit, but.
Yeah. So again, you know, government has the absolute power to change a business or anybody's, but just businesses in specific, standard operating procedure. And, you know, through our democracy, businesses, as well as anybody else, has a say kind of in what those procedures are. So, you know, for example, you have HR or payroll policies. Those can be affected by laws that are passed. Another example is healthcare. We hear from a lot of small businesses that healthcare is just really expensive and hard to provide for their employees. A lot of them want to, but can't. It's just cost prohibitive. So we're always looking for ways to expand healthcare options through policy to employers and therefore their employees. You know, I've talked a lot about the legislative process, but sometimes policy can change outside of the legislative process, like the COVID-19 emergency temporary standard. I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with. You know, the Safety and Health Codes Board is going to be meeting on November 12th to discuss making those changes permanent. So there's just a lot of different ways that, you know, policies are A, made, and B, affect business owners. And, you know, part of my job is keeping an eye on those policies and making sure they're reasonable and, you know, they give their businesses a fair shot to succeed.
I love that. And I think it's just so important for our businesses, especially our small business owners, to understand that that is your role at the chamber and that there is someone looking after them, right? And on their behalf. And then they have a say too, right? Like you guys are listening to what businesses need, which is super important. Yeah. I want to talk about a little bit, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, my puppy is crying right below my feet. So if you hear a little whining going on, it's Holly.
I'm glad my wife isn't here. She's been bugging me ever since we moved in to get a dog. So that's next on the to-do list.
Well, I know that Holly's not gonna let me pick her up, or I'd show you guys. You want to get up on that? No, she's like, I think she needs to go outside, but let's just keep moving. If you guys hear some whining, that's what it is. I hope that you guys do get a dog. We can talk about that another time. That's right. But it's life-changing in good and bad ways. It's great. But anyway, I want to talk just a little bit. Let me check on our time and make sure. Okay, we're good. One of the things that we have recently become super interested in is America's New Business Plan. That's been put forth by the Kauffman Foundation, which works with entrepreneurs, not necessarily existing businesses. And I know that that is a little bit out of the realm of what you've been doing. But we are hoping that in the future, we can create conversation on the national level and then trickle down, right, to state and local around policies that impact entrepreneurs. And some of the things that we're super fascinated with that you guys are paying attention to, and that we want to keep kind of pushing, especially regionally, is really creating opportunity for people. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I don't miss anything here, where we level the playing field and get rid of a lot of the red tape that's there currently. And leveling the playing field, talking about it's easy for bigger businesses to get in front of policymakers. It's really hard for small businesses and especially entrepreneurs that don't yet have their business to get in front of policymakers, which is where you can be supportive, right? Because we can use you for that.
Yeah.
And that's part of leveling the playing field. Let's have, policymakers aren't going to listen to 100 entrepreneurs, right? Different times. But if we have someone representing them, that's a stronger case. And so I think you guys can play an important role for that. And I know you're interested in that and excited about that.
Yeah.
And you think about it with policy for sure.
And that's what I tell a lot of people. We have so many different, shapes and sizes of businesses. And, I know 0.1% of what they know about their own businesses. So I rely on our members a lot when it comes to creating kind of our policy statements. How is, law X going to affect you?
Right.
And
you're going to speak on their behalf. So, when you have that membership with the Roanoke Regional Chamber, I do want to we love all of our chambers, and it's so important to get involved with your local chamber too. But one of the really cool things I know for me as a business owner is that the Roanoke Regional Chamber does that policy work, which is critical. So I love that you just said that, as you're going out and fielding members' information so that you can take that and report it back to policymakers. And I think that's super important. The other thing that we want to put a lot of focus on is funding. We talk a lot in this region about access to capital, and we have committees working on it, and everyone is paying attention to it. And sometimes it's really hard to pull the strings without a more national focus. We only have so many resources locally, right? And it really has to become a national conversation. And I do think that going forward, although we hate COVID, there have been many lights out of it. And part of it is us understanding how important small business and entrepreneurship is to our economy and to our communities. And I think it can become a national conversation. And it's really allowing those folks, entrepreneurs who are starting businesses and early businesses, like 1 to 3 years, have access to money. And maybe it is creative, innovative funding models that are out there that just aren't supported on a national level. And even with our banking models, right? Like, it's really hard as a small business to get a loan unless you've been in business for 5+ years. And we really want to start having that conversation nationally about how to get more focus on that and opportunities, so that it's not just local people trying to make this work and find funding for people, but that it's a conversation happening with policymakers.
And that's a great example of something that I'd be fascinated to sit down with, not only, some of our members where that's been an issue, but also with you and with Heather, and kind of do a group huddle and say, what are some ideas? Is there anything on the national scale now that would take care of this that we can advocate for? And then obviously from there, you go to your congressional delegation, and then Senators Warner and Kane, and then you advocate. That's how the public policy process works.
Look at this, guys. You guys that are watching this. This is collaboration and process. So Terry, I'm going to take you up on that, because I actually do sit on the committee for access to capital. And I've been thinking a lot about policy lately. Just a ton with COVID. It's opened my eyes to some of the policies that need to change too. And every time I go to many of the things that I sit on, I'm like, we can do all the work in the world, but until policy changes and until there's attention at a state and national level, like, how far can we go, right? So I'd love to get into those conversations. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're in a super unique role to have the hands-on knowledge about those things. So I think that's just a wealth of knowledge that would be good to tap into.
Yeah, and we want to be advocates, but we can't be policy. We can't do public policy. So we can use you for that, right?
That's right.
And some of the other things is just knowledge, how to start a business and how to modernize that, not the process of starting a business, but modernizing some of the support services like the SBDC and others, so that we can serve people where they are, when they need it, and how they need it. And that also takes a national focus. We're doing our darndest in the Roanoke Regional SBDC to modernize what we're doing. We've got lots of big plans for the coming year, but we can only do so much, right? So we need that focus to be bigger. And And even support. You've already mentioned this. Healthcare is a huge issue. It's not only a huge issue for existing small businesses, it is the biggest hurdle for people to leave a traditional job and go into entrepreneurship. It's when I talk to people about it, that's their number one fear. That, and they don't want to lose their retirement, matches, right? Some matching opportunities or opportunities to advance their savings for retirement. And those are two things that there are options when you're an entrepreneur, but they're not well known and there's not enough national support behind them.
Right.
And you guys are already advocating for that. So I love it. I just think there's so much that we can do in relation to entrepreneurship. So I'm excited to continue those conversations. And we're so lucky to have you being part of that and really pushing that for us. So Heather, I'm going to give you a minute here just to say whatever we might have missed, but Heather, did you have other questions that have come up?
I'm sorry. Sorry, my pups were talking as well. They're chatty. All the pups are chatty, Terry.
One day we're going to have a Zoom call with all of our pups.
That's right.
Let them talk.
That's right. They have a lot to say this morning.
Of all mornings, right?
That's right, of all mornings.
You're jazzed up
Not
about public
today.
policy.
That's right. They care about public policy.
That's right. It affects me too.
That's right. It does indeed. Heather, did you have anything that you wanted to add before I give Terry the floor and let him, if there's anything he wants to talk about?
No, this has been great. I always learn so much from you, Terry, whenever we have a chance to talk. There's always little nuggets of gleaning, and I love the opportunity to be able to collaborate. And we have a special role with being in the same building as you, but I think you're just do such a great job, and there's so many opportunities for us to continue to collaborate and keep moving the needle to help our small businesses here locally and across the nation.
Well, I appreciate that. And obviously I learned a ton from you all too. So it really is a collaborative relationship, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So Terry, this isn't like, a promo video or anything for the chamber. We have to be careful with that. But you mentioned that when you work on public policy, you need a voice, right? You need people to tell you things. You need people to be part of that conversation because you can't represent alone. You have to have other people involved in that process and giving you information. How do people do that?
Well, so every year, what we do is we poll our membership with a public policy survey.
Okay.
So we survey our members each year and then develop a legislative agenda based directly on what our membership says are the most important issues. So, we'll have some qualitative data, we'll have some quantitative data, and kind of mash everything together and come with our policy agenda based off of, exactly what our members are telling us. And at that point, if a member comes to us midway through the year or during legislative session and comes to us with an issue that we might not have thought of before, for the most part, we can always fit that, into our agenda because it's pretty all encompassing. So
sure. I love that.
So, I always recommend people email me with anything they might, any issues they might be coming up with, or if they have any ideas on anything.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's, one of the points I want to get across, again, not doing a sales pitch here, and maybe it's just public policy is really important to me. I love politics. I love policy and how it impacts everyone. And I'm always fascinated by it. So it is important to me. And I feel obligated to put money in that area, right? Like as a business expense. And I know it's hard for small businesses and entrepreneurs to do that, but to be part of the chamber, to have access to that and to have a voice in policy, I think is just priceless, quite frankly. And so I want to encourage our people who are watching, like if you're, don't have interest in joining a chamber, or, there's lots of reasons people don't have interest. This is the area that we just really think is so important that you can't have a voice elsewhere, right? I mean, we can go to city council meetings and other, council with all the jurisdictions that wherever your business might be, but you can't have that state and voice, right? Unless you have a lobbyist, and our small businesses can't afford a lobbyist, right? Like we can't do that. So we have to depend on the chamber to do it.
Like anything else, it's always, you're always stronger when you're together. You always have more of a voice when you're all combined.
That's right. So everybody check out, even if you're not a member of the chamber, but you want to get more involved, you have events throughout the year that bring policy to the forefront that people can join in. Many times without being a member, just with a small fee. And so I encourage you guys to check out their website, roanokechamber.org.
Yep.
Is that correct? Okay, I should know that because we're on that, roanokechamber.org. Just go check it out because they list their events right up front. So maybe a good way to get your toes wet is to look for some public policy events and attend those. Either virtually or we haven't done any live yet, but maybe in the coming year.
And maybe I can plug, we do have an event coming up pretty soon. It's virtual.
What is it?
So it's the pre-session legislative breakfast. Usually after session, we get all the legislators together at the Vinton War Memorial and do kind of a post cap of what happened during the legislative session. And COVID ruined those plans. So we're doing a pre-session event virtually this year. So we have a good portion of our legislators from the region that are RSVP'd for that. You can either register on our website or also it'll be live streamed on our Facebook page too.
Oh, that's awesome. I hope that you guys watching, and we'll try to help spread that word too. It's just a great way to understand what's going on, right? Like, I think I went to my first event. I'm not an event person, but I went to my first event last year, I think, or maybe it was the year before. And it was just, it just brought me more into the picture, right? Like right in front of the legislators and hearing what they had to say and what those conversations are. So it's super powerful. I hope that's a great way for people to get kind of a taste of what it's like, especially virtually, right? You don't have to commit. Mm-hmm. You don't have to commit to wearing the right thing and being in the right place. Put a tap on and join in and listen. Okay, so register from the Roanoke Chamber website and again, Facebook Live. Tell me one more time when it is.
It's November 10th, and I think we have that running 7:45 a.m. till 9 a.m.
Okay, 7:45 to 9 on November 10th. Perfect. Okay, anything else that you want to add to the conversation that we haven't talked about that you think is important?
I don't think so. You guys did a great job. I really appreciate it. I guess I would just leave people with something that you've already said is just stay engaged. Get to know your local elected officials. They're all normal people just like you and me. Don't be intimidated by the fact that they're elected. They're there to serve their constituents. I think a lot of people might get intimidated due to policy talk getting washed out by hyper-partisanship, but I think policy is always going to be important and people just need to be engaged on it.
Well, and it's so cool right now, Terry, that, we work with a lot of the offices. They reach out to us often about small business matters to share information or to get information from us, and sometimes uses it as a catalyst to do things. For example, the Rebuild Virginia program, we're a catalyst for the governor's office to help people with those applications and to get the word out. One of the great things around COVID is that we all care about small businesses. And so no matter what party you're part of or which way you lean, we all care about small business. And that's a common conversation we can all have. And I will tell you guys, I've been super impressed with the conversations being had and the way that they reach out and the concern that they're showing on all sides, right? I'm really, it's in a moment where we're all so divided, it's that light that's like, I really feel fortunate here locally, and even regionally and even statewide, that there is that common desire for small businesses. So we're super lucky in that way.
Yeah, and we're super fortunate to have, a very responsive delegation too.
Yeah.
Really are.
Yeah. Some of those folks are going to be moving on, and I'm so sad. But we can talk about that another day. Okay, well, we'll end here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for Casual Friday. Do you have a mug of coffee, Terry, with you?
I do.
Let's do a cheers. Heather, do you have your cup? You always have a fancy cup. All right, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
And we'll see you, Heather. When is our next Casual Friday? 2 weeks from now?
2 weeks from now on I guess it's longer than that, the 20th.
Okay,
I think that's right, the 20th.
that is correct. Yes, that's right.
Um,
And we're
Brett
meeting with-
Malone from the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center.
Yay! So we'll be in Blacksburg.
Yes.
Awesome. Good. Okay. Well, we'll see you guys then. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find this video everywhere later today. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Guys.